I woke up to like tons of messages, text messages, emails from journalists. What happened to your logo? And I was like, oh man, what?
If you're bored with it, you're actually probably doing the right thing.
Everyone who has a stake in like the brand just needs to be able to talk about it.
Then the company needs to stand behind it, right? Like, this is what we're trying to do. We're ready to move forward.
I'm gonna say don't put your tagline in your logo. I hate
Oh,
it.
I like it.
Drives me crazy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Out and About podcast, where we break down all things marketing and financial services and everything that we see working and what's not working and answering all your questions. So we're excited to have you back. We've got a fun topic, or at least it's fun to us, so we hope you enjoy. I'm obviously joined here again by Jimmy and Ellie, and we're going to talk about visual branding. We'll get into what that all means, but basically, we're going to talk about how marketing is more than just a pretty face. So that's the theme of today. It's what is Ellie? I'm going to steal your thing. What do you always say? Like, it's not just the frosting, it's not just the icing, it's the actual cake.
Yeah. It's good to have that frosting on top. You want the frosting on top. That's what makes people want to eat the cake. But if it's just a pile of frosting, it doesn't do anybody any good. So
Exactly.
you got to have both.
Yeah.
Style and substance.
Yes, absolutely. So, should we dive into, actually, because it's kind of on topic here, should we talk a little bit about all the like rebranding that we see out there? We don't have to go into the politics side of things, but we can talk about the juicy gossip of marketing these days.
Yes, the infamous recent rebrand.
There's been an emphasis,
Oh.
but I feel like even if you just go back like 6 months a year, there's
always one
series of these. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always
Always.
one.
Always.
Rebrand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the recent one that we're all thinking about is just a really good example of like knowing your audience and knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking on the call earlier about like, as an intern, whether you're an internal on the internal marketing and brand team or whether you're external, like it can be tempting to like get sick of the brand. Like you see it every day. Like I'm sure everyone who works at Target is so sick of red. I'm sure you get so sick of certain things and you might think it's stale, but you really need to know and be sure that everyone else thinks it's stale before you go and change it, because you see it 8 hours a day. People interacting with it out in the world see it very rarely and might also have a completely different opinion on it than you do. So yeah, I think the recent one that we're thinking of is like, okay, this brand is built around tradition and consistency and kind of like old timiness. Like maybe a super modern rebrand wasn't exactly what that audience and that brand needed. So
Yeah.
that's my hot take.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because when we're talking about branding, we're going to get into the specifics of what all that means. But in this particular case, these headline idea, and we can talk about the specifics companies if we want, but maybe it's better to keep it vague. I don't know. It's usually a logo change, right? That's like the driving feature. Which I
People usually get mad when you change your typeface or change your color.
Yeah,
palette.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I find it kind of fascinating because I don't know, like we know logos and we like logos, but like, are we really that emotionally tied to certain logos? I guess maybe we are. I don't know.
think so.
Yeah.
I think this recent example and past like examples of big companies doing that just shows that don't underestimate like the kind of attachment that your consumers have to your logo. I mean, it's like maybe they like it, but it's also like an assurance that oh, I'm getting what I used to get, and that's not a bad thing. Right? So it's kind of like marketing 101, right? You give your consumers what they need or want. You don't try to like push something to them. So yeah, I mean, to Ellie's point, I think it'll be interesting. Like, did they do like a consumer survey or a focus group? Like, what do you think of the logo? Do you think it's stale? And yeah.
Yeah, well, and sort of our own hot take on the topic right now is just that like we feel bad for all marketing teams that are behind all these PR campaigns, right? Like you see the company, like the logo, and then somebody in marketing or some, head leader, whoever, like makes an announcement and, oh, we've changed our mind. We've listened to the people and, we've fired the company. And meanwhile, I'm just like, that poor company, right? Like they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They were just trying to follow whatever.
That was probably the assignment they were given.
That's exactly. The brief said, modernize this logo.
Yeah. It was maybe just an assignment that never should have been given.
Exactly. I know. I think that's the takeaway. I mean, not that we're going to wrap up the podcast in the first 3 minutes, but that's one of the main takeaways, right? We talked about positioning last time, and you got to know who you're talking to and the purpose of your brand and all of that, and like not let trends drive the conversation.
Yeah.
I think
don't fix what isn't broken.
Yeah. That's actually a really good segue though, Tiffany. What you just said is to maybe just like double down and clarify like what we're talking about, how what we're talking about today is different than last week.
Yeah.
Like last week we were talking, brand, and people use the word brand for so many different things and interchangeably. And if you ask 10 different people in the industry, you'll get 10 different answers. But last week we were more focusing on like the positioning of your brand, which is like the foundation. Like, what do you stand for? What are your values? What do you want people to know about you? Like kind of like almost like what's your elevator pitch? And today it's like, okay, you're taking that next step of, and then, okay, we know what we stand for. We know who we are, how we want to be perceived. How do we get that message across? It's kind of like, I use these analogies all the time, but it's kind of like, okay, your personality is like your positioning. Like you are a person who has XYZ values and you're spunky or you're serious. That's your personality. The way you then talk or the clothes you wear is your visual brand or your brand voice and how you convey that to the world. Like if your exterior doesn't match your interior, people are going to get confused or making correct assumptions. So yeah, you just want to make sure you're putting out what your like essence is.
That is so true. Like how you present yourself, how you show up has to match like the inside.
So then there are times where it makes sense for big corporations or small companies to update their brand, right? I mean, then it does make sense, right? We haven't modernized in a long time. We're reaching a new audience or things like that. So again, that's where the empathy goes to the marketing company. The brief should have aligned well with who they were actually trying to target, and then the company needs to stand behind it, right? Like this is what we're trying to do. We're ready to move forward. So anyway, that's our hot take, because there are times it's time to update the logo. We've done it plenty of times. But then you have to take that stand. Yeah. We made this decision as a company. We're going for it.
I think my rule of thumb, sorry, I need a drink of water, but it's like if your logo could have a driver's license, you really need to assess it and see if it needs an update. It might not. Like that's something. It may be like some logos are timeless, and if it's still working, like by no means, like the example we were talking about, don't fix it if it ain't broke. But yeah, like if it's been around for like 15, 16 years, it's time just like, okay, let's just take a look. Is it portraying us as outdated, or is it still good to go? And if so, proceed. But sorry, just a little side note.
Especially if it's not a name brand or like a household name, right? Like if it's a household name, to Jimmy's point, you probably need to really think about whether we're making major changes or why, and like really stand behind those. But if it's not a household name and you're trying to come in and turn up the marketing, then it's probably time to go like, okay, was this even reflecting this new push, like as you're trying to bring in new leads and things like that?
Yep.
All right. So visual branding is probably the phrase we'll use, but we may talk around it a little bit. So what are we saying yes to? What do we love when we talk about this topic? By the way, I love that we're talking about this because it's not my area of expertise. So we're gonna let Ellie be the lead in this. But Ellie, what are you saying yes to when it comes to visual branding?
Mine is very specific, and I should say when we say just like one little caveat or side note before I get in, we've already talked a lot about logos, and I just want to be clear, like that is the foundation of your visual brand, but your visual brand also includes the typefaces you use, your color palette, your photography style, your layout style, your iconography, like it's everything that would go into a brand guidelines. But yeah, like the logos are the cornerstone. It's the most important piece. That's why we will focus on logos, more disproportionately to all those other pieces. But my thing I'm saying yes to relates to logos is pet peeve of mine. Stop putting taglines in logos. There's so many
tagline free logos, is Ellie.
tagline free logos, please and thank you. When so many things are being viewed on phones and in little profile icons or in the footer of a little email, or like even if you're talking a print piece, like, so on the digital side, like, don't put your tagline in your logo, just because 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be legible. It's just going to be a bunch of jumbled pixels and no one will even read it, and then it'll also look sloppy. But like, just like, secondly, in terms of just like overall design, like you probably spend a lot of time crafting your tagline, and you probably spend a lot of time crafting your logo. When you lock them together, they start to compete, because your name is probably a word, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 words, depending on the length of your company name. Your tagline's another 5 to 10. Like, don't have those two things competing for people's attention at a single time. Like, let your logo shine. Like, even if it's like a brand folder, let your logo shine and put your tagline on the bottom. Your tagline can live other places. Let them both be their own thing, and don't mash them together. Sorry, I probably talked about that too long. Like I said, pet peeve.
I love it. Okay, I'll share mine next, mainly because we just did this with a client, so that's why it's on my mind. Otherwise, this would not be, I don't know if I'd think of it right away, but photo shoots, getting a photo shoot for your team, and then doing some branded stock photos in that, or at least, Ellie says, at least move away from real stock photos, like I'll just say, what do they call? I just pulled it up, you guys, and I can't remember. Coastal Grandma. Like, let's get away. Everybody doesn't need to have the Coastal Grandma Diane Keaton brand. So, like, thinking outside the stock imagery, thinking outside the grandparents on the beach. But my favorite is when, especially our team, can go in and be like, okay, when you get those photo shoots, also take this picture and this picture and this type of picture. Ellie's really great about, like, giving them a whole, like, list. And it just makes me so happy, because then we literally have all these photos and videos, snippets and B-roll and everything that we can use no one else is going to use, because it's theirs. Yeah. That's my favorite. That's my yes. That's my favorite thing right now.
Saying yes to custom image libraries, not just a pile of generic stock photos.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Jimmy.
Okay, well, what I'm saying yes to, and I'm glad that, Ellie made that distinction. Visual brand, yes, the logo is a cornerstone, but we're talking about a lot of other things, and that is relevant to what I'm saying yes to. I love it when a lot of thought has gone into the whole visual branding, such that you don't even need to see the logo. Sometimes you just need to see elements of the logo, or the way they treat their pictures, or maybe a certain way or preference they use illustration. And you could almost play the game of like, look at this, and you cover the logo, guess which company it is, and maybe 9 out of 10 times people will give you the right company. I think that is so clever, and that's what I'm saying yes to.
That reminds me, we had a client years ago, and they have I'm trying to be vague, they have a shape in their logo that's really specific, and throughout their brand they use this element. So even when we built their website, their images, their photos were like created almost like a cookie cutter had been put on these, like the shape of that part of that logo. I think the developer got quite a headache trying to make this happen, but it looked so good when it was finally done, because it was just so on brand. Like, no one else has that image, or not, sorry, that, what am I trying to say, Ellie? Like that
crop,
that silhouette. Yeah, like that crop of it. Crop, that's the right word. Yeah. Anyway, it looked so good. So I love that. All right, so let's get into it. Visual branding, Ellie, or anyone, but Ellie. Why can't we just go to Canva and make a bunch of pretty things and move on?
So many reasons. No, I actually do. I will say, people give Canva a hard time. It has its use, like lots of tools.
Oh yeah,
like ChatGPT. There are, we've made things for clients in Canva. I don't actually viscerally hate Canva, but yes, when you're at that level of crafting your brand, I would not go to Canva. Go to Canva to roll out your brand, not to create it.
Yes.
Because first off, I mean, if you're looking in the Canva, in the Canva libraries or whatever, you're going to be, number one, using things that other people use. You're gonna, you could end up with the same logo as the competitor down the street who decides to go to Canva in 6 months from now. even if you avoid that, that potential pitfall, it's just never going to be like we're talking about how your visual brand is really how you reflect your personality and your values. Like maybe you'll find something on Canva that gets you like 80% of the way there. Like it's kind of gets your personality, but you're never going to get something that is like number one, unique and recognizable. Number two, custom to you that truly, reflects the personality and the experience you provide. And then my third thing is too, just in terms of just like feasibility of like rollout and keeping things going. Like you pull things from Canva and then, 6 months down the line, you need a new web page. Well, then you have to go back, like the likelihood that you're going to be able to go back to Canva and then find the right, corresponding imagery or a different kind of flyer. Like Canva is never going to be able to give you that really key, like that brand consistency which is so important to just put the same visual stamp on everything you do on every platform, whether it's your business card or your LinkedIn profile or your website or the tote bag you send home with your, new clients. You'll just never be able to get that sort of breadth and consistency if you're trying to build a brand exclusively on something like Canva. Sorry, like I said, I love you, Canva. I'm not trying to hate you. Just for other
I know,
things.
I was just gonna say, well, we can get into like folders and things like that because we definitely do. But like, how, Jimmy, feel free to jump in on this too. Like, okay, so how do we do that? Like, how do we build a brand that's not just I can't remember how you just said it. I should have just stolen your words, but you were like, we can't just build it there because we can't just go back and look for the same thing. So like, what are the elements that we need to build first to be able to then go out and like make the things? Like, because it feels like Canva's like the place to go make it. So like, what step do we have to take first? We have to know our logo. Like, do they understand what I'm asking?
Like logo, like what is, I guess it kind of starts with that.
Or you can throw it to Ellie too. I didn't mean to call. I just
like what is the, I guess it's like what is the style, right? Like everyone who has a stake in like the brand just needs to be able to talk about it. Like, oh, what do we think the brand is? And again, the last time we talked about brand positioning statement, I think that helps. Yeah, Ellie.
I think too is like, I mentioned earlier, all the parts and pieces that go into a brand, having your logo, your color palette, your fonts, kind of your layout style, your photography style, icon style, but having something to kind of hang your hat on, like Tiffany, the example you just gave of one of our, like a past client we had where they kind of always led with a image cropped into their logo. Like that was kind of like their go-to. And can I use the name of the one we were talking about before the call? That's not our client, that big one we were talking about, the illustration style.
Sure. Yeah, you can use them. Yeah, I think you can use them. They're not.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not, but I was, so like if you in the financial services industry, you probably get lots of Fisher Investments ads on your LinkedIn feed. I know I do. Like the moment I started working out and about, it was like Fisher ad, Fisher ad. But though they hang their hat on their illustration style. So the moment you see that in your feed, you see it a couple times, and then from then on, that's what you're looking at. So they've decided, like, honestly, I couldn't even tell you what their logo looks like. I think it's like a serif font. I'm not even sure. I couldn't even tell you what the color palette is, but I know their illustration style. So, like once you have those elements defined, kind of if there is the really successful brands, I think have one part of their brand that they really go all in on. And yeah, like I said, hang their hat on. Like Nike's is their photo style, and obviously their logo. But like they switch up their color palettes, they switch up their kind of layout and design styles. But like Nike photography, you'll know it. So.
I like
Yeah, and it's like consistency, right? Like you mentioned, you have to. I really love the point that you made earlier on when we were chatting, Ellie, about how internally you could be looking at the logo and all your brand elements every single day, and you're like, oh, it's been like the 5th year that I'm looking at this, it's getting boring. But to your consumers, they don't look at it as much as you do. So, maybe you look at it for every 10th time you look at it, maybe they're looking at it twice. So it pays to have that consistency. And if we kind of use that Fisher Investments, again, the illustration, I'm sure it took a while to see it, to then go, oh, that's so them. To the point where now if I get a newsletter and I'm scrolling real quick and I see an illustration, I'll be like, oh, let me scroll back. I think it's them. And I'm like, yes, I'm correct.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different ways we can go with this. Okay, so I guess it sounds like the brand, no, so not the brand, the visual branding is a fence for us to work in. Like this is it tells us the guidelines, that's the word, right? Like these are the guidelines, and then we can scribble outside the lines once we know what like the line is.
Yeah, and I would say like the smaller an organization you are, the tighter the fence should be.
Oh,
or like yeah, and maybe not even the smaller organization, like national versus highly local. You know, like
Yes.
your brand like awareness. Like when, like I said, I just used Nike as an example, and maybe that wasn't like the best example. Like they play around with different things because they need to create so much, and they're in so many different areas. You know, like Target, even though they're pretty strict about their brand standards, like they have different campaigns and they can try, sometimes they, kind of switch things up. But yeah, if you're smaller, localized, like your most important thing is consistency to create recognition. That's not the time to be like, oh, well, what about we try this, like look over here for this campaign, or this look over here for this materials. Like, number one, it's also not very efficient. So if you're worried about just, like being able to create all your marketing touch points and things in an efficient, feasible way, like lock it down. But yeah, you really just want to focus on creating a super, like to the point, like I said, like what you're saying, like if you're bored with it, you're actually probably doing the right thing, because that means you're being super, super consistent, and that'll start building that brand recognition.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I was going to add, it helps to build that brand recall.
Yeah.
Right? Like you see it and you're like, oh, okay. And that is such precious like marketing equity that you can build, that brand recall. So yeah.
So speak to some of our listeners who are in that marketing seat who have those exact conversations, right? Their leadership is like, we're kind of tired of seeing the same social media posts, like or the templates all look the same, and I'm seeing new cool stuff from, my buddy, or, new stuff's on my feed. Like, what do we say to them, to our listeners? Like, oh, I'm trying to build a brand here.
Yeah. Trying to, if you can steal any of the lines we used over the last couple minutes, please do. But just like, it's like sorry, I have like 5 different thoughts running in my head right now. Yeah, if you're bored, it's probably a good thing, because like Jimmy said, for every 100 times you see it, a consumer sees it once. But also, like, that's not to negate, like, okay, maybe if every single one of your social posts is, I'm just going to make something up, like one fact, if you're just sharing like one helpful fact, and that's every single social post, it might not, like your visual brand and mixing up your visual brand might not be the solution. Like, what if you try different types of content? Like, what if your next social post is a case study, or your next social post is a feature of one of your team members? Like, before you start if you really do feel like creating more variety, especially in terms of like content, is a strategic goal, mixing up the visual brand should actually be the last way you tackle that. Because that, like you said, Jimmy, that is so precious, that consistency. So first look at ways you could shape the content, or even in your website, is there different information you could include before you just like, don't just change the frosting. Like maybe change the flavor of the cake.
And I was going to add, unless of course, there's incongruency, right? Between like how it appears and your brand and your visual branding. But otherwise, if it's, again, we go back to if it's working, if it's not broken, then keep it and explore freshness in other ways.
Yep.
I like it. Well, I know we're coming up on the time again.
Gosh, it goes fast.
I know, it goes so fast, and there's so much we can talk about. But what is our main takeaway? Our main takeaway is going to take us a minute to talk about anyway. So keep listening, listeners. There's more. There's more. But yeah, what would we like everyone to just action step from this? Where do we want them to go?
Yeah, well, I can take that, and it's going to be redundant to some of the other stuff we talked about, and that actually supports the point of our takeaway.
This is our most boring podcast, everyone. We're just repeating ourselves.
is to have brand guidelines, enforce them religiously, and put someone in charge of them. Like if your brand guidelines, first off, like if you don't have a brand guidelines that covers like that line item of stuff I've mentioned a few times, logos, colors, fonts, layout, photography style, and iconography style. I think I covered all the big ones. If you don't have a brand guidelines that covers those, or at minimum logo, color, font, those are the three things you absolutely cannot get away without having: logo, color, font. The other stuff is better.
And then before you keep going,
yeah,
tell us exactly what you mean by that. Like like this should be a PDF that shows the logo in its various formats that are allowed.
Yep.
And then the colors with the numbers that are associated.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know what they're called.
There's CMYK values for print, and the ones for web are called hex values. They're a little 6-digit code. I'd say, I mean, people don't do as much print anymore, so even if all you have is your hex values, that's the most important thing to have.
Perfect.
And then, and then you have your fonts.
Yes. Okay.
And if you have to have different, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds here, if you have to have different fonts for like, let's say your Word docs or your Google presentations, that's just like a stumbling point we've seen people hit a lot. It's like if you got your brand designed by a designer and they gave you, in all likelihood, you have like marketing fonts that are not available in Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Google Slides, whatever.
They're on your logo or whatever, but they're not. Yeah.
So just make sure you know what those fonts are. Like what fonts are people that match your brand fonts that people internally should be using when they create a Word doc, a Google slide, whatever. But yeah, so have those documents, enforce them. Like you were saying, consistency is boring, but consistency is key. And if you don't have, if your organization is small enough, or like roles are shared and it's not clear, like if you don't have a VP of marketing or someone who's, or an internal designer or someone who is like the obvious go-to person for these type of questions, have someone assigned to be the brand police. That's what I've always called it. Like, who's the brand police? And then they're the ones, that just, then at least you've got one person who's in charge of knowing all that information, is charge of making sure everybody's doing it consistently, can resolve any questions. If people are like, okay, I made this, if you are using Canva for your social posts, like have one person where if somebody makes this post on Canva, they can go to that person and say, okay, does this all look right to you? Does this seem on? Oh my gosh,
it's like compliance, right? Yeah. It's your brand compliance person.
Brand compliance. Why didn't I think of that?
I know. I just thought of it now.
So good. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Visual brand compliance.
I love it.
So
and like really make sure that somebody's doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Have somebody, because like my favorite phrase, if everybody thinks somebody's doing it, and then you don't want it to end up nobody's doing it. So I thought you were doing it. Oh, I thought you were doing it.
I thought this was our color. Oh, I thought this was our color.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
like, isn't it all green?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining us again. Anything else we want to cover? We're good? I know we can talk about visual branding a long time.
No,
we love doing this with our clients. So
find your brand compliance officer.
Yeah. Love it. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. If you love this conversation, you want to hear more, make sure you head to outandaboutcommunications.com/community to get on the newsletter list. We'll be sending out reminders about the podcast and various resources that we use internally with our clients. So you'll definitely want to get on that list. And we will be back in a couple weeks chatting more about questions that you have about financial services marketing. All right. Thanks, everyone.